This table is made from solid oak and is extremely solid and sturdy. I see these for sale on Marketplace for cheap because they're either in the original finish, which can sometimes look dated, or they've been painted. But if you're willing to put in some work, these tables can be a beautiful functional addition to your home. When I first started out doing furniture, I chalk painted everything. My husband thought he would come home and find that I chalk painted the kids. So I am not criticizing chalk paint, but what if you want to unchalk paint your furniture? That's the case here with my friend's table. It had been revamped a few times, most recently with chalk paint. She was ready for a new look. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to remove old finish, even stubborn chalk paint, and work with the natural wood to create a beautiful new finish. And if this looks difficult, well, it kind of is, but don't worry, I'm going to show you all the steps, and if I can do it, you can do it. I'm Amy. I build and revive furniture, often adding something new to something old. I'm sharing tips, tricks, and methods on how to give old pieces a new lease on life. Welcome to my shop. The first thing I'm going to do is remove the pedestal base from the top. This will make it easier for me to work on the pedestal at eye level. And my shop stool was the perfect size to hold the top. Then I gathered some supplies. I found that furniture strippers work differently on every piece. So I just usually try a few different ones, whatever I happen to have on hand, and see which one's going to work best. And acetone is a great solvent to have on hand for any stubborn spots. So I set up an area close to the furniture with newspaper and all my stripping supplies. Gloves, brushes, scrapers, and a little throwaway bucket. I use a plastic grocery bag as a liner for the bucket to make it easy to dispose of the used stripper. After doing some test spots, I liked how the clean strip was working, so using a wide chip brush, I coated the entire tabletop in the stripper and I let it get to work. So this is the part that's going to take some practice. If the stripper gets too dry, it might be hard to scrape up. But if the stripper's too wet, it's just a muddy mess, and it probably hasn't cut through all the paint yet. With this brand, I wait until it looks dry, which is only about 15 minutes, and then I scrape a small spot. If it feels sticky and hard to scrape, then I brush on some more stripper and I wait a few minutes and try scraping again. If you let the stripper dry out completely and it's not coming up, don't panic. All you have to do is brush on some more and start scraping. You can see there's still a layer of dark stain and probably some primer here, so I'm applying one more light coat of the stripper and using a plastic bristle brush to really get into that wood grain and get the last of it loosened up. After it's all loosened up, I scrape off the residue. This is a close-up that shows what it looks like when the stripper's done its work. You can see how it looks like it's bubbling up. I'm working on the pedestal next, but I'm going to be working in smaller sections because the stripper seems to be drying out really fast. You can see though how it's cutting through multiple layers of paint here, so I probably will not have to go over this part again with a second coat. This table only had a few detail spots, so I'm using a small brush with some stripper on it to loosen up the old finish. After wiping everything down with warm water and a rag to remove the stripping residue, I started sanding with 120 grit sandpaper to get through that last layer. While you watch this very satisfying footage, let's talk for a minute about sanders. Yes, I am using a really nice, powerful sander that's great for solid wood projects like this, but if you're a DIYer or a beginner, you do not have to have this sander to do this project. How do I know? Because this is the third oak table I've refinished, and the last two I did not have this sander. I used my trusty old DeWalt sander and it worked great. It's not quite as powerful, so it'll take a little longer, and you might have to go through a few more sanding pads. But building and refinishing furniture is my full-time job, so I've invested in several different sanders and other tools that'll help me produce the best outcome for my clients and help me be efficient with my time. If you have a detail sander, that would work well here. I don't have one, so I'm using a carbide scraper to get these little spots. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It doesn't matter how many fancy sanders you have. You will always have to grab a piece of sandpaper, fold it in half, and do some hand sanding to get every last spot. After sanding everything with 150, then 180 grit, I used the underside of the table to test out a few different options for finishing the table. Although the raw wood looks beautiful now, when I apply a top coat, this color will change. Every wood responds differently to a top coat, and it varies depending on the top coat. But how will you know what it's going to look like after the top coat? A trick I use is to spray the surface with some water. This is a good indication of what it will look like when you apply a water-based top coat. If you're going to use an oil-based top coat, use mineral spirits. You can see this color is just too yellow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a paint wash to try and cancel out some of that yellow and add some warmth and depth to the color. This is a 50-50 mixture of two different paint colors. Then I watered down the mixture at a ratio of about 3 parts water to 1 part paint. It's not an exact science, and every wood is going to react differently to a paint wash. So the best thing to do is to test in a spot first and make sure you like it. I'm brushing it on with a nylon bristle brush and wiping it off with a disposable shop towel. And I'm wiping in the direction of the grain. This looks really good so far. You can still see the pretty grain and there's still dimension in the color, but we want to warm up this color a little bit. So I'm applying this glaze with a disposable shop cloth, making sure to wipe in the direction of the grain. This glaze is very forgiving and very easy to work with. And it's also water-based. So for example, if it adds too much color, I can just water it down before I apply it. I wanted to make sure everything was dry, so I waited until the next day to apply the top coat. Here, I'm using a water-based satin polyurethane. There are a lot of options for top coats for wood furniture. Oils, waxes, wipe-ons. Feel free to let me know what you think in the comments. But I've had great success with polyurethane with these oak tables. It's extremely durable and it holds up really well to heavy usage. I lost count, but there's about 3 coats on the pedestal and probably about 6 coats on the tabletop. So let's take a minute to remember where we started. And here's how it looks now. I'm so honored my friend trusted me to refinish this piece, and I know she's thrilled with how it looks in her home. So what do you think? Would you take on a project like this? Let me know in the comments below. I'm already working on something new. Make sure to like this video and subscribe so you can see what's next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.